email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Today's guest is someone who embodies what it means to lead with heart and purpose. Claude Silver is the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerX, where she's redefining what modern leadership looks like by putting emotional optimism, empathy, and human connection at the center of the workplace culture. Claude helps people feel seen, heard, and empowered at every level. She's also the host of the podcast Emotional Optimism: Living in the Silver Lining, a platform where she shares vulnerable, thoughtful conversations about what it means to be human in business and in life. Whether she's mentoring rising leaders or guiding corporate culture, Claude's mission is clear: to infuse humanity back into the workplace. Claude, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Clint. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. So I like to start off this with the same question to everybody that comes on the show. I like to think of y'all as superheroes, and every superhero has an origin story. And I have to tell you, when I was looking at your website, on your About Me page, you have a timeline. And one entry says at 40, I really got it. And when I read that, I was reminded there's a song from the late 90s, early 2000s by a guy named Baz Luhrmann, who wrote a song called Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen, and which is basically a hypothetical high school commencement speech. And he said, the line that came to mind was, "Don't feel guilty if you don't know what you want to do with your life. Some of the most interesting 40-year-olds I know still don't." And this has definitely been said about you. So what's your origin story?
Yeah, I love it. That timeline is really meaningful to me. It really was. It when I started putting it together, it really made me think about what and who I was at those different times in my life, and how they all have a red thread connected. And that red thread is really, if I could say, it's probably service. It's probably being in service of some sort of way, whether or not that's even, teaching people how to surf, or coaching tennis, or being on the soccer team, or something like that, has always been the red thread for me, which is group, community, team. And, my origin story is I was born in New York. We moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, when I was just about 12. So you can imagine coming from New York City, tall buildings, out to Santa Fe, which is a Rocky Mountain desert, and everything's adobe. Nothing's more than 3 stories high, which is wonderful because you can see the sky and the clouds and the mesas. I'm so happy, and I love that we moved to Santa Fe. It gave me a really great perspective of the outdoors, of culture in a very different way, and slowing down, I would say, for sure. I was really a poor student and struggled with dyslexia for a long time. I can say now it's probably one of my superpowers, as most dyslexics say. But I didn't do well academically at all in school, junior high, high school. Even before that, I was tutored all the time. And it was very difficult for me to find joy in not being a great student. Find joy in taking the SATs 3 times untimed. That was not fun for me. That was more embarrassing. And I really felt like I was letting my parents down a lot too, which is something that a lot of us dyslexics end up feeling, I had this missing chip that I couldn't, I just couldn't figure out where to get that chip, right? Which is when you say, at 40, I got it. It took me a long time to put the pieces together. I'll tell you that. But what I was really good at was understanding people and really believing in people. It took me longer to believe in myself, but believing in people and really, being that player, coach, cheerleader without the pom-poms. And that has really stayed with me for quite some time. And really, I moved to San Francisco in 1995. So I was there for the first dot-com boom, and really got to see the advent of the internet. I mean, there was no Facebook. There was no, there was Yahoo, I think. And we all had dial-up modems, and there was no Whole Foods. I mean, it was a very, very different world as it is today. And I found a lot of friendship and just I would say joy in San Francisco. I'm very spiritual, and it was there were a lot of open doors there to practice and play in different spiritualities. I ended up finally graduating from college when I was 28, so I was on the 10-year plan, and here's to all of us on the 10-year plan. And had gone very, very deep into psychology and transpersonal psychology and things like, things that transpersonal psychology and Jungian psychology, they take symbolisms and mythologies and stories, and that's how you get to know oneself. That's how you understand your behavior, by looking at yourself through these eyes of mythologies and other stories. And that really started to make sense to me, and I started to kind of understand myself a little bit more. And I was able to put some of those negative thoughts that I had about myself to the side, with a lot of work, don't get me wrong. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in advertising agencies. There was no rhyme or reason. I had no idea how an ad got made. I didn't know anything about marketing other than, I bought what I bought because I liked it. But I soon really went deep into the world of digital. And this is around, 2000 or so. And alongside of doing that, I had started an outdoor education program, an outdoor adventure company called Girls Adventure Out. So I was teaching surfing almost 270 days a year in the cold Pacific Ocean. I had that killer tan from the neck up and the hands down. That's why I have sunspots now, I'm sure. But, again, back to really cheering people on and really, that was me. I was pushing people in the water on those big 9-foot, 10-foot boards, anyone. And just being so happy when they would stand up or even get on their knees. And one thing led to another. And what do you know? I was working at this one agency in San Francisco, and the president of the same company in London called me one day, very posh accent. And he said, I won't do the accent, but he said, I understand we need someone with your skill sets. And within 2 weeks, I moved to London. I put all of my stuff in storage, and I was just about to turn 40. And it was a big deal. I had been in San Francisco for 18 years. I was very comfortable. It had embraced me. I had a wonderful set of friends and everything like that. And I started again at 40. I really did. Didn't know anyone. Yes, of course, we speak the same language, but it is a very different culture. And assimilating to that city, and I would say Britain and then Europe, was something that I just found so much pleasure in. And I found that I flourished, really being outside of the US and seeing other cultures and working on brands. I was still in advertising, working on brands that were, touching people, whether or not it was in the Philippines or in Turkey, things I wouldn't have done in the US. And I was there for about 4 years, and I met the wonderful Gary Vaynerchuk in 2013. I was introduced to him on a email, and then we had a phone call. And within 9 months, I had moved to New York and started working for VaynerMedia in May of 2014. And I just celebrated my 11-year anniversary.
That's awesome. I know there's a lot there. If I look back and think about your timeline, they're like the 3 last lines were almost the most impactful. 40, you figured it out. 45, you went to work at your current place. And then 49, you had a child, you have a baby.
Yep.
So became a mother, I should
kids.
say.
My partner, my partner had, she's much younger than me. So we have 2 girls. And yes, the first one came at 49. The second one, I think, came at 52. So I'm on the back 9.
I hear you.
The back 9 is going to be just as exciting as the front 9, if not more so, because, I'm a parent.
Yeah.
And that puts a whole nother dimension into your ball game.
It does. So you are a late bloomer for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I'm a proud late bloomer. I'm good with that.
And then I know in one of the other videos I listened to, one of the podcasts I listened to, you did something with Outward Bound also early in your life that was impactful.
Yeah. Huge turning point in my life. So I would say that and moving to London were like the 2 kind of pivotal moments in my life, and then becoming a parent. When I was 19, I dropped out of college. I had just I was going nowhere fast, bad decisions, bad drugs, bad boys, the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I told my parents I need to get out of here. And I knew what an outward bound was. I knew what these programs were. And I said, I needed to find the longest outward bound I could to get my butt kicked. And careful what you ask for. I found a 93-day. The longest one they had was called Wilderness Leadership Program. Or we called it the Way Long Program. And boy, oh boy, did that kicked my butt. That kicked my ego. That kicked my insecurities. And it built me. It rebuilt me, I would say, at 19. And that's really where my love of team building came in, and understanding that in a team, people have specific roles for specific reasons. Most of the time, to find efficiency and to move fast. And, it's like a Formula One pit crew is what we really were like. It's like you start to be able to act as a team in very serious situations in the wilderness without really having to talk. Almost, we got to be almost, I don't want to say robotic, but just understanding situations we were in. And we had been trained so well with wilderness first aid and all this other stuff that it was life-changing. It was life-affirming. And I really count my lucky stars that I asked my parents to send me there, because it did slap me up and down.
I think you had an experience almost on day one that reminded me of when I went to boot camp in the Navy. The first guys yelling in my face. I'm like, what did I get myself into? And you had a very similar. The person I guess really helped you change your perception of things.
Yeah, it was day one, and here we are in the Colorado Rockies. It's snowing. We're already at about 11,000 feet up, so it's high. I've got 80 pounds on my back, and I'm 5 foot. At that point I was 5'3". Now I'm 5'2". But and I was the only young woman with 9 young men who were strong. They were all 18, 19, 20. So they're like, and here we go. We have to traverse up this mountain to get to wherever we are going to pitch our tarps. We didn't have tents.
Yeah.
It was very, very, very rugged. And I was at the bottom. I was behind all of them, and I was crying. I was really praying that I would break my ankle, break my foot. Now, mind you, I just am recovering from a broken wrist, and I know how painful that was. So thank God I didn't break anything down then, because I would have been in really bad shape. But I was absolutely crying, and I was really hating, and I don't use that word a lot. I was really hating life. And I had a female instructor for the first 18 days, and she came all the way down, and it was raining. I had one of those, yellow slickers on, baseball cap, brim, and she looks under my brim, and she says, what's going on in your head? And I said to her, I'm singing, Head Like a Hole, Black Is Your Soul. I'd rather die than give you control by 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
She goes, well, you better get another song in your head. And that was the first time ever that it just hit me, just like that. If I can change the song in my head, then maybe I have a chance at being successful on this trip, on this adventure. And it did take me, I would say, a good 18 days to figure that out. I was not a happy camper. It sucked.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was cold. But I eventually was able to understand, that's a negative talk track I'm putting in there, even though nothing wrong with the song, just like maybe not the best song to be singing to myself as I'm challenged. And it really, she helped me see that there's another way to think about things. There's another way to feed myself rather than with negativity or sabotaging thoughts.
So that was like one of the pivotal moments, that Outward Bound experience. And you said the other one was moving to London. And you also mentioned that they called you and said, we need somebody with your skill set. Now, I remember watching in a video, you said that relationships matter more than skills, right? So, so why is that?
Well, skills are commoditized. There's a lot of people who are copywriters. That doesn't mean that there aren't great copywriters, but there are a lot of great copywriters. There are a lot of great engineers. There are a lot of great bankers. I mean, skills are, we learn skills, but the relationships, who we are, our behaviors, I think are what really counts, because our behaviors is what allows us to connect or not connect with another human being. And the name of the game, certainly in the workplace, the name of the game is relationships. One of the things that I've seen as we've had young people come into Vayner after COVID is, those people finished school on a screen. So being in an office environment, which can be loud, which can be, oh, you got your stuff on my side of the desk, that's awkward for people.
Yeah.
It really is. Oh God, that pizza smells, you're too loud. Hey Claude, is there any place I can go, to meditate? All that stuff. And we've had to adapt a bit and really help those folks to understand what it's like to actually be in a working environment, not on Zoom, that's different, but when you're in that office with someone, and how to share space, how to not take up all the space, those types of things. So, it's all relationships are what matters, and that there's a give and take, and a respect in relationships. And I think really some of the best relationships that we're forming in the workplace are ones in which we recognize that there's really not a big difference between you and me, right?
Yeah.
Except our lived experience, which is going to be different. But you and I both have red blood. You and I both know what certain feelings feel like.
Yeah.
And those are the things, those commonalities, I think, are things that we can lean into more so to make ourselves humanize ourselves.
Sure. Yeah, you talk about your stuff is on my side of the desk, and your pizza smell, or the pizza's probably okay. It's the fish smell or whatever else, right? But that's to me, that's the messy side of relationships. But the face-to-face piece, I feel like, is so important, because that's really, I'm going to connect better with you when I'm in a room with you and I can see you and talk to you than I would on Zoom. And I understand Zoom is the way we have to do things, and there's always going to be that going forward, that virtual component of it. But there's just to me, there's just things that happen when you're in a room with somebody face to face, sharing the same breathing space as than on Zoom.
It's the natural way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the natural way we've always been since the dawn of time. We've been in community with one another. We've been figuring out, who's going to play the drums, who's going to go hunt, but we've been face to face. So we've all had to adapt and find some kind of equality and also equity and respect in this new space.
Yeah. Now, on your website, it says your life's purpose is to be of joyful service and unlock emotional optimism in all. So help me. I'm always a big fan of semantics and getting their definition of things. So how do you define emotional optimism?
Yep. Emotional optimism is really the belief and the hope that things will turn around. It's a way to identify and understand and be compassionate about your emotions, whatever they may be, but not hang on to them and have them define you. So, for example, I'm not sad. That situation is making me sad, but I'm not going to stay sad.
Right.
Right? Because I'm going to see my kids later, because the sun is out today, because I'm going to have a great conversation with Clint. Like, the situation makes me ... And we get caught up sometimes in thinking that emotion owns us, and it really starts to strangle us. It identifies us. And when that happens, especially if it's a sad or dark emotion, it's very difficult to feel hope and possibility, and that the sun will shine again, or I can phone a friend and that person's going to remind me that I'm a good human being. So that's emotional optimism. It really is the belief that things are going to get better, but you have to have that. You have to feel optimistic. You have to feel like there's such a thing as possibility. You have to do some of the work.
Yeah. It doesn't mean everything's always rosy. It just means you see there's a good side.
Yeah. It doesn't mean no. Because that would be, being a Pollyanna, and that would be toxic positivity, which is not emotional optimism. Toxic positivity is, it's COVID and you're sick and, well, don't worry, it's going to get better. You're going to be out of it soon. And it's like, well, no, actually I had to go to the hospital because I had COVID or whatever it is, I mean, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that it's important to be realistic about, and you can still have optimism around.
Sure. Now, what does leading with the heart mean to you in the context, especially in today's corporate environment? I'm really, when I first just saw your job title or your, chief heart officer, that's what immediately drew me in, because that's just not something you see all the time. And yet you're in a corporate environment where obviously bottom lines matter. So first of all, what does leading with the heart mean?
Leading with heart for me is being a human, is literally not putting up armor. It is being like I am with you. This is who I am. This is how I show up. My hair is definitely not perfect. What you see is what you get, but you will get me, and I will be present with you. I will be vulnerable with you. I will trust you first. There's no reason for me not to trust you, right? There's no reason for me not to try at least to empathize with you, even if we, see things completely different. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's literally leading with heart for me is just leaning forward with humanity, being human rather than being robotic, which is what we've been trained to do for the last 100+ years, right? We've been trained to not show ourselves. You don't know me. Don't come too close, right? Certainly don't get your food on my side of the desk, but don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And that's a way to just inhibit yourself and not have a growth mindset, not learn from one another, not be curious about one another. So for me, I could replace heart and humanity very easily, which I really do. And it's really just at the crux of it all. It's how can you feel comfortable being yourself in the workplace?
I think there's power in knowing that Claude's always going to be the same person, whether she's having a good day or a bad day, whether it's a good or bad thing. She's still going to be genuine in herself, and I think that's powerful to the people who work around you.
Well, you just hit it right there on the head, because it's about consistency.
Yeah.
So and you've seen videos of me. I'm the same exact person. I have the same exact voice, the same exact hair, the same exact hand movement. I am, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
However, if I got on this video and all of a sudden was all coiffed and speaking in a slightly posh accent or something, you'd be like, where's Claude?
Yeah.
So, but people at work, I think, especially those of us that are humbled and honored to be in leadership positions, people are looking at us all the time. They are looking at us. Is she showing up in the same way? Does she walk into a room with her energy up and eager, or am I looking at my phone? Those are things people pick up on all the time.
I think it's also interesting. You talked about trust being a cornerstone of, leading with your heart. And I do a lot of global work, and I've noticed that there are definitely cultures. So I trust first, and you have to prove you're not trustworthy, and then I'll take it away. But I assume you're trustworthy. But I've been to places like, say, Russia, where that would not be the case, where they would say, no, why are you talking to me? I don't know you. You must want something from me. And I'm not trying to poke fun of Russia, but there are other cultures that are like that. And so you have to, you've been in the US and then also in the UK and Europe. What has been your experience with that from a trust perspective?
Yeah, it's very interesting that you bring that up, because I remember when I was giving a talk in London, and I used the word love in the workplace. And someone came up to me afterwards, a British person came up to me, and she said, we don't use love here. We would never use love in the workplace. What are you implying? And I said, I'm just implying love of another human being. I'm not implying romantic love.
Right.
I'm saying opening us up to connecting with other people. And, yes, that's love. I mean, that's love. That's like, whatever you call it. And she really didn't see it that way. Well, I'm lucky that I did see it that way, and I do see it that way. And I recognize that different cultures, to your point, are going to be like, we keep things very close to our chest. And I get it. And that is something that is ancient for a lot of those cultures. And I'm not the one to go fix that necessarily, but I will certainly continue to be me. And when I worked in London, there was a time during my first, I guess I was there for 4 years. So my first year, I would say, where it was really strange for me. I come from San Francisco, city of love, all that stuff. And it was very different for me. It was a culture that I wasn't used to. And so it took me a while. And this is part of why it was such a pivotal time in my life, because it took me a while to figure out where I was, what was going on here, not changing my stripes. I don't want to change my stripes, but to figure out how I was going to assimilate and then find like-minded, like-hearted people, which of course I eventually did, because they're out there.
Sure.
They're out there. And so, I guess to your point, there are cultures that are just, they are set in their ways, and that's just the way that is. I hope that the more conversations we have like this, and the more people that are in the workplace, giving of themselves and taking off armor and really holding space for another person, like, I care about you.
Right.
I hope that soon enough, some of those cultures start to soften, if not dismantle, in time.
Yeah. I mean, going back to Russia, I've known some people who lived there for many years, and they said that once you get to know them, you'll never find a closer, better friend. But their initial thought is, "Why are you talking to me? What do you want from me?" And so it's interesting that they do not lead with trust, and yet we're talking about leading with trust, which is something I also believe in. So,
yeah, oh yeah, it's massive. Why? Let's just talk about that for a second. Why wouldn't you trust someone that you just spent 3-6 months looking for and hiring? Like, why wouldn't you? You've already done that work. Right. And we hope that the person that we just interviewed for 3 months, that person will still be the same person when he or she walks in the door day one. But, chances are they will be.
Yeah.
So what have they got to prove?
Right.
I mean, I say this a lot internally and externally, which is like, who's the smartest person in the room? People look around, or they look around on the Zoom. No, I'm not going to talk. Well, the smartest person in the room is the room.
Absolutely.
It's the collective.
100%.
It's the collective. And, we go to school and we learn how to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
But that, to me, is a very backwards way of thinking about things. It's an isolating ego way to think about things rather than an inclusive way. I am smarter today because I'm having a conversation with you and you're adding to me, right?
Yeah.
That's how I think about things. And that has to do with trust.
Yeah. When I teach classes, I always tell people at the end of the 2 days, now you're the smartest person in the room, because you know everything you know coming in and everything I know going out. So now you're just,
Plus, yeah. Yeah. I like that.
And then with the team, I think there's a quote that I saw. I won't even say the name, but it was a jazz musician in Brazil. And he was talking about doing improvisational jazz. And I just love this concept for a team. They said, well, how do you know what to play? He says, I listen to what's being played and I play what's missing, which is really what your job as a team member is to not duplicate somebody else's effort. It really is to play what's missing. You look around, I truly believe what you said. I say that all the time. The collective is always smarter than the individual. So, your job is to see what's missing and plug that hole.
I love that. And I've not been a real jazz aficionado, but the more I've listened to it, I understand what you said there. And it's almost like, what Michelangelo said about David. Like, David was there. His job was just to kind of find him.
Exactly.
He was always there.
That's how I feel watching, what's the guy's name with the Afro bob that does the paint?
Oh, the paint. Yeah.
Oh, because the tree is just there. There it is. How come when I do it, it doesn't show up?
It certainly doesn't show up with me, but yeah, I know that gave me the chills. I love watching him.
Yeah. So I also heard you talk about wanting to create a collaborative culture of we, not I. And I wonder, how do you define culture? And we were talking a little about it, but go ahead, how do you define it? And then how would I look at my culture in my organization and figure out whether it's a we or an I culture?
Yep. Great question. So I define culture as a vibe. It's energy, because culture is very difficult to see. It's not black. It's not green. It's not necessarily, hazy. but it's a feeling. It's a feeling of I'm scared, I'm fearful, or I'm happy,
Right.
or it's a friendly, warm culture, or it's a real serious high performance culture where we're just, got to hit our margins all day. Whatever it is, you can feel that. One feels that. And so then the culture, that feeling lives in my heart and my mind, and in your heart and your mind. And if we're in that same, if we are both at VaynerMedia, hopefully we're both picking up on similar energies. Again, we're going to dissect things differently because of who we are, but we're both picking up on the fact that, wow, people really eat lunch together here. Wow, there's a lot of camaraderie and all. It's loud in that kitchen. People are enjoying themselves, that kind of stuff. So that's how I define culture. Really, it is a vibe, it's an energy, but it is something that exists within all of us. And one of the reasons that I have used the term culture champions now for quite some time is rather than culture carriers, because my assumption is, and something I say a lot is, culture is not my responsibility or Gary's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. And congratulations, you are responsible for the culture, which is great. You get to put your thumbprint on it, your heartprint on it. It's not Claude's heartprint. Claude's good. So how can one tell that they're living in a we or an I culture? How many people walk around and say, I did that, I did that, I did that, I did that, I did that? There's nothing that gets done, certainly in our company, that is an individual job. Other people touch it. You're an engineer. There's 1,000 other people that touch what you're about to put out there.
Yep.
Right? Or you're touching and putting, making the sausage, and someone's going to productize whatever it is you're touching. It is a team effort. It is a we. And so, I look for this when I interview people. How many answers start with I did this, and I did this. And I'm not really interested in what you did. I'm interested in what you were part of.
Right.
Unless you're a marathon runner, I'm very interested in what you did. But also, let's be honest, a marathon runner, a top tennis player, whatever it is, there's a whole team behind you.
100%.
Kobe used to say that. Serena Williams has said that. Like, without her team, she's not a champion. Coco, who just won the French, so you just listen and you see how many people are like banging their chest all day, because there are people out there that see leadership as a badge, right? And if you were in the armed forces, you know exactly what I mean.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that. And I understand that. You're protecting our country, and there needs to be a hierarchy. There needs to be a hierarchy there. But also, from what I understand from people that I know that have been in the Army, Navy, Marines, you are nothing without that team.
Nope, 100%.
And so you can't just go to get your butt kicked in base camp and just be like, whoa, I'm the strongest one here. Like, no, you all almost died in that base camp. So it's really, there's the question. The way I answer the question is really the way I answer all the questions that we're talking about, which is, it takes a village. It takes a village. And there are individual contributors in a workspace for sure, but you are handing that off to someone.
Right.
Someone's handing you the baton. That's just the way it is.
It's interesting because, we were talking a minute ago about the people coming back in the office and figuring out how to be in the same room again together. One of the challenges I always felt during the COVID and during the work from home is, if that's your first job out of college, how do you pick up company culture over a Zoom call? Because to me, culture is what happens when the phone hangs up. How does the person react? Were they positive on the phone with the client and they hang up and a bunch of curse words come out, and are they always belittling people behind their back? That's stuff you don't see necessarily when it's all remote. And I was always concerned about people who come into the workplace in that environment where you don't really get to pick culture. You can't see it.
No, you can't unless you are on a team where there is someone leading, or someone is the culture champion of that team. that believes in some kind of ritual. And I don't mean religious ritual. I mean, every day when we do our stand-up meeting from 9 to 9:05 or 9 to 9:15, we are going to start with a quick round robin of what you did last night. What did you stream on TV? What did you do on the weekend? What music are you listening to? Or you do a 3-minute meditation, or you do some breathing. But that has to be consistent. That, the only way that rituals are built is through actions become habits, and then they become rituals that the team embraces. So that is one way you can do it. And when we were in COVID, and there's a large team that I oversee, we would do scavenger hunts every Friday, a scavenger hunt. So you just knew it. And you knew okay, by the time Friday comes around, we've already talked about how many times we ate chicken and how many times we cooked chicken. We already did this. We already did it. Let's go do something fun. So that is one of the ways that you can reach out and kind of pull people in. The other thing is, cameras on. I mean, I know it's ridiculous to say, but there's a lot of times that I still have to say, I'd love to see your face if you wouldn't mind putting a camera on. If that's an issue, just Slack me and tell me why, I'm crying or something happened or whatever. But that is part of being in this tribe together. We all understand, the rules of the road. We are all going to participate with our cameras on and, not looking at Slack and doing all that stuff. And so it's an agreement we have to get into. And it's hard. You're right. It is hard for some of these folks and certainly the youngsters who are, of course, going to change the world, right? The Gen Zers and Gen Alphas. I mean, you and I are going to be working for them in no time. But they grew up in a social world. They grew up with the phone as their pack of cigarettes, as their pack of gum. Yeah. And you and I didn't. And we're lucky. I think we're very, very fortunate that we didn't grow up with that addiction. We've got our other issues for sure. But you and I didn't grow up comparing ourselves to something fictitious on a screen. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe it's not fictitious, but it's photoshopped. We just didn't.
Yeah, I'm lucky I didn't grow up because I would have been in a lot of trouble. I was already in enough trouble as a 16-year-old boy. I can imagine with this stuff that, with the capabilities they have today, I'd have definitely been in trouble.
You and me both. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. But so that's one of the things we have to humanize, I would say, in the workplace too. And I mean, we do social media. Our job at Vayner is basically a social media production shop, an advertising agency that produces social. So our folks are on social all the time. And one of the things we need to do when we speak to them, or I speak to them, is really coach them to what it's like to what is that imposter syndrome telling you? Because you just looked at, different people online eating chicken or whatever. And let's figure out what this negative talk track is. Like I had that negative talk track at Outward Bound. And let's figure out, is that true? Probably not. Let's find what is true. Let's find evidence for what is true, to counteract some of the craziness that goes on.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I know that I have a BS meter from being old and having grown up not with a cell phone in my hand. But I have to say, with the AI stuff, even the stuff I now see, quote unquote, see on screen, I have to again depend on my BS meter that says that just doesn't sound like something that person would say, but they're clearly saying it. It's a great AI. It's like, so now I don't even know. It's getting harder to figure out what to trust. Yeah.
Right. We started talking about trust. It is difficult, and then you think, well, I guess that person wanted to be the smartest sounding person today. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's one of the things Gary taught me very, very early on was 99% of things don't matter. So just concentrate on that 1% every day. What is the 1%? If that person wants to use AI, God bless. That's not my issue today. Yeah. Let me deal with this. Let me, and unless it is my issue, and then I'll have to take care of that. But what is the one thing I need to do today? What is going to move the needle on our business and on our humans?
There's a book I read. I wish I could remember the author's name, but he's out of Texas. But the book was called The One Thing. And what it tries to answer, what you have to ask yourself each day is, what is the one thing that I can do that by doing this either eliminates everything else I need to do or makes everything else easier. And that's a way of really refocusing what you need to be doing on a certain thing, you know?
Yeah, that's very cool. I'll check that out. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I love what you just said, because what is that one thing I have to do that eliminates everything else?
Or at least makes it easier. Yeah.
Clear calendar.
Yeah.
Joy.
Well, that concludes part 1 of my conversation with Claude Silver, Chief Heart Officer at VaynerX. Coming up in part 2, Claude discusses the importance of personal accountability in the workplace.
One of the things that we say at Vayner is point thumbs, not fingers. So before you go and you say, Sally really messed me up today. Sally didn't QA that document. Sally, well, did I look at the document? I was the one that presented it. So shouldn't I have read it?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So pointing thumbs, once you take accountability, if it is truly yours, gosh, it frees things up and you can move on with the conversation. You can move on with whatever it is that you all are stuck at.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation. To find out more about Clint, go to clintonmpaget.com and pick up Clint's book, How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment, at Amazon. The Conversation with Clinton M. Paget is a production of Forbes Books.